Hello, friends. Wow. Look at that. Yeah, how pretty. It is a beautiful day here in Oklahoma. It is a beautiful day. Hear that bird in the background? Singing his song. Playing his little beak. He's singing his song. He's happy. That's probably a love song. A couple of birds are going to be out there making love here in a minute. He's going to woo her. Dance for her. But us humans, we wouldn't think about doing anything like that, would we? No, because that would be immoral. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is like a perfect day. You see the wind? It's not... Wind like that doesn't bother me at all. That's just like... You go for a year with all different kinds of weather and it all comes back around to another cycle. And it seems to me like the spring is just the best. And you know, most of this stuff in the world, most things in the world, it's all in the head. It's all in the mind. So I think after a long winter, you know, you're cold and tired of the dreary skies. And, you know, I think it rains more in the winter because when the sun's out, if there's water coming down, I think it evaporates a lot faster. It doesn't even get to the ground as much. And then when it does hit the ground, it evaporates. So you don't get a lot of mud. So I think that's why there's more sunshine in the summer. It just doesn't... When it does rain in the summer, there's big thunderstorms will go through, and I love those. I mean... So rain is an example. You can love it or you can hate it. Too much of it, dreary, long drawn out, muddy, cold temperatures. No, I don't like it. But it doesn't last long around here. And it's important that we have it. But then when the summer comes and you're hot, and here comes a big rainstorm, oh buddy, it's fun. Thunder, lightning. You know, you can sit on your porch and just look out over the hills and watch the lightning, and it just goes through and sun comes out again. You know, it's beautiful. But the spring, I think, for me, is the most beautiful. It's what we wait for every year. We get through a whole long winter waiting for spring. So mentally, I think I'm more prepared to like sunny skies and green coming back and the flowers blooming after a long winter. But I don't know, it may very well be the best time of year for me. I know a lot of people will say fall. But with fall, it means that you have a short time to enjoy it and you know the winter is coming. And I suppose for people who like winter, that would be a good time. So I suppose winter isn't such a terrible thing for some people. Because I know a lot of people, depends on where you've lived for a long time. If you lived in Alaska most of your life and you get tired of that crap and you want to come down here to Arizona or Texas or something, you really appreciate the sunshine. But if you've lived in the sunshine all your life, born and raised, you felt like you saw pictures of Montana and Canada and you thought, oh, it's beautiful up there. Colorado. And, oh, it's cooler. I don't like this hot. And you think, oh, man, I'd love to go somewhere it's cool. Oh, look at the snow. I've never seen snow. So then you may actually think, oh, I want to go be there. And you know, you can do something when it's new and it's wonderful. You can do it for years and enjoy it. Especially if you get to experience it correctly. If you go to the mountains where there's snow and you're prepared for it and you have a nice four-wheel drive and a good heater in your car, a lot of gloves and some good boots, you know, you're not going to notice that it's cold. I was raised in the mountains most of my life. I mean, I wasn't able to remember the first year of my life. I can't really remember too much of it or anything, but I was told that I was born, well, the hospital record says I was born in Fresno, California. Auberry, which is a little borough, I guess, of Fresno. But we were living in the mountains above there, above Auberry. Basically, if you look on a map, you'll see a little place called Shavers Lake. And it's up the mountains from Fresno, up in the mountains. Right at the base, basically, of Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain in the continental United States. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful up there. And we lived right near Shavers Lake. And my dad had lived most of his life in the woods. And my mother came from Hollywood. She always thought she was, she identified with Dorothy on The Wizard of Oz because she was born in Kansas. Well, Nebraska, actually, but it was real close to Kansas. Same thing. And when she was a little girl, family moved to Los Angeles area. And so she kept saying, oh, I need to go home. But her name was also Dorothy. That was her name. I always called her Joyce. I didn't even know her name was Dorothy. Because it was always, well, her name was Dorothy Joyce. Her middle name was Joyce. But I didn't know she had a name. I didn't know her name was Dorothy as a little kid. I used to call her Mom. But when everybody talked, called her or whatever, or when my dad would call my mom, he would say Joyce. So I always thought that was her first name. I didn't know. But it's funny how we end up with these names almost by some kind of destiny. Because, well, I can give you a lot of examples. Joseph Smith. They named him Joseph long before they ever knew anything about what he was going to be or do in his life. And he ends up writing or discovering a book on golden plates. And he translates them. And it's about the Native Americans that the book says are Israelites, Hebrews. And time has proven that statement. It's proof that the American Indians were Hebrew all over the country. It's absolutely undeniable. But I remember a lot of, growing up, I remember Joseph was a name that Native Americans used a lot. I think there was a chief, an Indian chief that went by Chief Joseph. And he was popular and famous when I was growing up. But also the prophecy that was given to Joseph in the Bible was that Joseph would be the one who would receive the birthright, and his branch would go over the wall and become fruitful, a fruitful bough by a well. And he would push the peoples to the ends of the earth, the other opposite end of the earth, which is America. And that's not what this video is about, of course. I mean, I could go into all kinds of scriptural proofs that we are the fulfillment of Joseph's prophecy, who would be adopted into because he wasn't one of the 12 tribes. Joseph was, but his two children, Ephraim and Manasseh, weren't. So he got a double portion, and his firstborn Ephraim had to split. They didn't split but they got a double portion. And so there was a new tribe that was adopted into the 12 tribes. And Dan's tribe was discontinued because of the fact that he went off and married he went north up, says he shall leap from Bashan. He shall be a serpent by the way. So Dan his symbol was the serpent, and he went to the mountains of Bashan, where the Bible says is a great mountain, Mount Hermon, where the angels fell. And they had been having relations with the daughters of men, and they had relations with the tribe of Dan. And they made a royal bloodline. That's even in the prophecy, where Dan would also be a lion, or a royal bloodline. So you see Dan's blood. It says he went in ships. The Bible says he took off in ships and sailed around the world. And you'll find the serpent's trail from where he started off there in Sidon, Dan or Don. And he went from there in ships off the coast of the Mediterranean to the Tuatha De Danann. Some say that may be him. Others don't think that's referring to Dan, but to Danu, which was a son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah. So there's some controversy as to whether the Tuatha De Danann, or the tribe of Dan, is really talking about the tribe of Dan or the tribe of the Danu from Judah. Because it's probably the latter, because the Tuatha De Dananns ended up in Ulster of Ireland. And there is where in Ireland you have the Dins, or the Dons, that's their word for their ruling power, the Dan. And you have Densmark, and you have the Danube River, and the Dinister, and London. All the places wherever he would go, the Bible says he would name a city or a river or a mountain after himself. So there's some mixing there, because it says that Dan shall judge his people. And early on, a member of the tribe of Dan, whose name was Samson, became a judge. And of course, in those days, that meant like the ruler of the people. It's like a general that became a ruler. This is before they had kings. So Dan would be one who would judge his people, and he would be a serpent, a sly little serpent, who would bite the horse's heel, the prophecy says. The horse's heel means the colonization of the horses, the soldiers, the armies, the traveling people who went on horses to every corner of the earth. And Israel then was to be sent into all the world, in every corner, every north, east, west, and south, and even in the land of Sinim. Sinim is the word for around China and Indonesia. So there would be the children of Israel, the 12 tribes in all the world, because Jacob had 12 children, and 70 souls came out of his loins when he went down into Egypt. And those 70, or actually in the Septuagint 72, represents all the rulers. And that's why they always had a 72-member Sanhedrin. That's why there were 72 people on the boat that went to Marseille, France, because they were all the 72 that Jesus chose to start his government on the earth. And they went into Europe, and they began, and they planted the Fisher Kings. And the royal bloodline was the Holy Grail that was protected by the knights. But the prophecy of Joseph was that he would go to the ends of the earth. So each and every one of the tribes didn't get a specific prophecy. Several of the tribes would get their blessing in Joseph. All of the other tribes would get their blessing in Joseph. He became the whole mixed multitude. So Joseph went down into Egypt first and ended up marrying into the line of Shechem, whose daughter was Asenath, and Shechem was a Canaanite, which was the royal blood of the southern part of Egypt. That's where Abimelech was when Abraham went there. And Abraham's line became the other pharaonic line in the northern part. There were two Egypts, the northern and the southern. So there were the two pharaonic lines. But Abraham made a pact, a treaties with Abimelech, father Molech. And this is also where we get the priesthood of Molech Zadok, or Melchizedek. It was the original priesthood going back to the city of On in Egypt, which is a Greek word, or sort of the Greek spelling of the Sumerian Anu. So it was the first of the, it was the chief, of the father of the gods. And his descendants, which is Ea, Enki, and Marduk, and also Thoth through another wife, who ended up bringing forth the destined one who was born of the virgin. Because the other side from Ea, Enki, were the Anaki, or the Anunnaki. From heaven to earth they came. Anu, heaven, earth, Ki. And so the Ankh that you see in the sky, you see Orion. Orion is a star constellation with his hand high in the air, and he's reaching out towards the Pleiades. And in the Pleiades, there is the seven stars that in Egyptian mythology shows the Ankh. And it was more or less where the original cross came from. It was the sacred Ankh, or the union of heaven and earth, the spiritual union. So the cross is a symbol that symbolizes the crossing point of light and darkness, good and evil, love and hate. And Orion is the Aryan man, or the race of mankind, who starts the year every year at the beginning in spring. We call it March, but Mars is where that comes from. Mars, and that's a Greek or Latin name, but we call it also Aries. The ram. Mars backwards is ram. So that is the spring. And the spring equinox starts the year. And Aries is just the way that Osiris has come down to us, is Aries. And in Hebrew it came down as Azaris or Lazarus. El Osiris, or the god El Osiris. And so Lazarus, which also has come down in Latin as Caesar, is Caesar. The Caesars are the great rulers. The Sumerian Sar meant ruler. And it's also where we get Osiris. That's why the word means ruler. Just like they always say. They say El means Lord, or they'll say Baal means Lord, or Molech means Lord. They all mean Lord. Well, what they're saying is they're names of gods. And so human beings on earth would sometimes use their name and say, look, I'm God, because that's my name. But really, these names aren't just another word for Lord. They are titles, and they are the names of gods. So, Osiris, in another Greek spelling, depending on the tense of the word, it may have the word us at the end, or u, or un, just like Jesus, Jisun, or Jisu. Are all perfectly good grammar if you're speaking Greek. But we don't do that in English, so we just get rid of the end of it. That's why we say the Apostle Paul. We don't say Apollyon, or Apollios, or Apolliou. We say Paul. That's all we need to say, because that's how we talk. So we don't, we don't need to say Jesus. That's just one tense of the word. Could be Jason is another way of saying his name. Jason and the Argonauts. So all of these words just come down too many different ways, and we don't understand. We're just sometimes repeating the same word in a different form. So Orion is just another way of saying Orius, or Arius, or Osiris. And so Osiris was reborn from the dead. At the resurrection on the horizon. Well, why did they say he was reborn? Because you see the stars going around the earth. And they have 3 different cycles. There's the cycle of time, such as the 24 hours in a day. So every day at 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun comes up. And that is on the west side of the wheel, if you're looking at the astrological wheel. Sun will come up at 6 o'clock. But if you make a calendar out of it, that's March. West side of the... See, March is at the west part of the wheel. And beneath March is Pisces. And Aquarius. And Capricorn. Going down to the bottom of the wheel. That's darkness, and that's water. Aquarius is aqua. And the January, John the Baptist, baptized in water. So Jesus said, I have to be baptized in water first, and then I'm going to raise on the horizon. So we all have to go down into the bottom of the wheel and get eaten by the great beast, or the sea beast of Revelation, that tries to devour the woman, that he might destroy her child. But the child is the Christ, and he gains the victory, and he raises up on the horizon, which is Orion, Osiris, who gives birth to Horus the sun, or the city of Jerusalem. Every great civilization had their city. The great city Ra in ancient Egypt, when the Greeks took it over, they called it Heliopolis, because their word for sun wasn't Ra or. Their word was El, like the Hebrews. El, the god, El. And so El was their Helios or Elios, or like the Greeks, Olympias. Mount Olympus is the mountain where the sun shines on the top of the mountain, because the mountain's the height. And the mountain in astrology basically starts in March, and the ram goes pushing up the hill. Then the bull comes along and plants the field, getting ready for the summer. And then you go into Gemini and Cancer's at the top of the wheel, up in July. And then Leo comes next. And then Virgo. And at the end of Virgo, there's another woman, Libra, who's holding the scales of justice, because the sun goes down in darkness again. So Right now, a lot of people say, well, we're going into the age of Aquarius. New age. Well, that's ridiculous. See, the calendar goes from March to April. The clock goes from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We never go backwards. You can't go backwards in time. It's impossible, isn't it? You can dream, you can imagine the past. But, you see, we're always going towards the future because, you see, the past is something you've already done. If you dwell in the past, then you're not in the present. The present is something that's ongoing. It's the only time there is. So you can't go in the future, and you can't go in the past. We're always in the present. And the present is what you're doing right now. And in a second or two, that will be the past, but you can't do it over again. So, we're always improving. That's why the world's an evolutionary thing. It's always improving. It never gets worse. Now, it can get worse if you take a seed and you plant in the ground, you don't give it water and sunshine, it'll die. Well, that's worse. But it's still progress in the sense that it's going towards a consequence, a result. Once the consequence arrives, you can do it over again, but you do the whole thing over again. That's why we reincarnate, which is why we create new worlds to use our imagination and do something different. We never go back to the past. We might look at the past and use it as a blueprint for the future, but we don't go back and relive the past. Drinking my coffee here. Such a beautiful morning for coffee. I put ginger in my coffee. So I'm kind of drinking ginger and herb tea with a little coffee in it. It's really delightful. I love it. Ginger is such a good, you all should be drinking ginger. Put it in your soups, wherever you can put it. Because it, curry does the same thing and stuff. The Indians use that, but, I don't care for curry. I like ginger. There's very little taste. It's a good taste. It's not a bad taste. And you can put it in your coffee and hardly even know it's there. But what it does is it fights candidas and restores your body to its equilibrium and gets rid of the acidic situation going on in your body. Gets rid of all the inflammation, joint pain, brain fog. Because brain fog is caused by this candidus, this bad virus that's going throughout your body. Well, not a virus, it's fungus. And along with candidus, you get all these other little parasites that thrive as symbiotic cousins. So you get rid of the candidus, you get rid of all these other things like E. coli and salmonella and other very evil little bacteria that lives in your gut. And the candidus makes big, long roots down into the lining of your gut. It's very difficult to get rid of. The only way you can get rid of it is starving it out. Stop all sugar, all white flour. I'm digressing here a minute on this because it's important. You have to stop eating any sugar whatsoever, any white, crystalline, processed sugars. You can eat a little molasses and a little honey. That's good for you because it has vitamins, phytochemicals, nutrients, oils, all these amazing, the yellow color of the honey is a phytochemical. It's a food, so the body can process it. And most fruits and things that have sugar have fiber, soluble fiber, holds the sugar in it like a little time capsule, and it only gives you what you need. The rest of it goes out into the sewer. But if you're just eating straight chemical, it's like going and getting the coca plant. It's a plant. It's a herb. You can chew on the leaf and you feel well. You get well-being and happiness and strength and vitality. But if you take that leaf like Coca-Cola does and extract the cocaine right out of it like a chemical, and then you put that on the market underground selling it to the minorities, then they're going to get sick because it's a chemical. It's not a food. So just about everything you buy at the store is a chemical. It's not even a food. It's an extract. As I said before, all the baby formulas, the seniors, Ensure, the drinks and stuff for the older fellows, they're all, you look at the first ingredient, high fructose corn syrup solids, dried out corn syrup, which is the most way more dangerous even than the crystalline meth or the sugar, which is what sugar is to me, meth, crystal meth. But anything like that, crystal meth or something that's manufactured and extracted, that doesn't mean you can't take cannabis and make a tea out of it or boil it in oil. You can either drink the tea or you can boil it in oil and put the oil in your bakery items, or you can put the oil on your head as an anointment, as the Bible tells us to do. Let them bring the sick one unto the elders, and they will anoint his head with the anointing oil, which is 1 part cannabis and 2 parts olive oil. And they put cinnamon in it and myrrh for a fragrant and fragrance to make it smell good. But it's mostly about the cannabis. By the way, I don't know if I told you guys this, but one of the best things you can do, you have to eat fermented food every day. So you get rid of the sugar and the white flour and all that. Chemicals and saccharin and all aspartame and every other thing. Little pink, yellow packages you put in your coffee, get rid of that. Diet Cokes, all of it. High fructose corn syrup, you got to get rid of all that. Immediately. No more whatsoever. You can make your own cakes out of ground nuts and seeds and rye and barley and different things, but don't use white flour. But one thing you can use to get your fermentation every day, because it's hard for modern humans, we don't eat a lot of food, because to ferment it takes a little skill, and we don't, we go to the store and buy stuff, so it's hard for us to ferment our food stuff. Of course, you can use yogurt, but you need to get the plain yogurt. You might be able to put a little, like you can get a regular yogurt and then a plain one mixed together. I mixed it with cottage cheese, so I'm getting, most of the time I just eat plain yogurt with cottage cheese together, and I'll put bananas in it. Bananas, you notice how they get brown real fast? That is because there's a bacteria in the banana that will break down candida. So bananas, papayas, and pineapples are very good for breaking down candida. It's very good for you. So I eat bananas because I love them, and they're not, pineapples, cut them, they're all juicy, and they, you got to eat the whole pineapple or put it in the fridge, and I don't have a lot of fridge room, so I don't keep a lot of stuff like that. But I just keep my bananas, and I eat them and my cottage cheese. But another thing you can do is you can get you know how the Chinese, they just look so young and they just live so long. Well, not only do they eat the fermented soy that is helping them live much longer, and their sake wine is rice wine. So it's fermented rice. There's a guy who lived to be 150 years old. No kidding. And he drank sake every day. I used to drink sake when I can get it, I'll get it. Because I drink a glass of wine in the evenings, and I prefer the rice wine because you get used to the flavor, but it's good for you. Sake. And so it's a fermented, it's very good for you. The wines that we drink today aren't as good because they got sulfates in them. So you can make your own wine. But anyway, what I wanted to say is that the Chinese are using this thing called soy sauce. And I didn't know this until recently, but soy sauce is fermented. Very much so. It's brewed. It's made from soy, but it's brewed and fermented, and it's very highly probiotic and prebiotic. It's very good for you. And that's why they put it all over their food. They're eating white rice. You think, well, how are they going to live long with just eating white rice, Well, they soak it in fermented soy sauce, and they don't eat it right away. So it sits in the fridge, and it literally ferments the rice. So when you put the soy sauce on your vegetables, you steam them, and the rice, put it all over that. Eat what you can and put it in the fridge. The next day, you're getting a better probiotic, prebiotic, fermented meal even. Every day you let it sit. One of the reasons why human beings are so sick is because we're eating everything right from the pan, right from the frying pan. Sterile, has no bacteria, you can't digest your food. You got to have bacteria. I know a lot of people that feed their animals in little bowls, and they clean the bowls every day, right? Like they're humans, and they sit at the table and stuff. If you love your animals, don't do that. That's why they eat poop, because they need the bacteria. That's why they'll go out and eat grass. Even though you're feeding them all this food in the house, they're going out and they're eating grass. My dogs will eat the walnuts and the pecans and the acorns. They eat food on the ground and poop because they need bacteria. So when you feed your dog, don't sterilize their food. I put my food right on the ground for them. I don't use a bowl. My daughter keeps buying me bowls for the dogs, but I don't use them because they literally eat poop. They need bacteria. But we humans do too, and we're being told, oh, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Don't wash your hands. Unless you just went into a, humans are different than animals. We're not supposed to eat poop. So if you get something really, really bad and nasty, a dead animal or carcass or whatever, you need to cleanse yourself, go take a shower, wash your clothes. We don't want any of that. Retroviruses, death and maggots and parasites that get into our body, of course. But I'm just saying, you don't need to be afraid of the dirt. You pick a berry, it's out on the grass, in the field. Pick it right off the plant and eat it. There's bacteria on it. You don't wash it first. You don't have to go and wash it. Unless you think that there's been some inappropriate goings on. Maybe if it's in a certain area where animals could pee on it or something, you might think that. But usually if you're in a bramble bush, there's nothing in there peeing on it. And it's probably rained many times. So you can eat the berries right from the bush, and it's very healthy if you do that. Anyway, I've been digressing a little bit because it's important that we understand how to get healthy. To sum that little part of this video up, if you'll start by the best thing you can do if you're sick and you don't feel well, the first thing you need to do is fast as long as you can, because that will cleanse your body and reduce the fat around your kidney. You got to get your kidney working again. So you'll reduce the kidney size, or I meant liver. You'll reduce the liver size because your liver's made out of fat, and it reduces it the longer you fast. You're not going to get sick as long as you have some fat around your belly. Your body will use that fat. You might feel a little weak after 20 days of fasting or 30 days. Like you don't have a store of energy. So if you get off walking or running, you might not be able to run a long distance that way, certainly. But you have plenty of fuel if you're doing normal activities. And it's not going to harm you in any way. It's just taking it. Your body will always take and burn the fat that you have on your body first before it takes any vital organs or anything like that. Well, it does eat on your liver when you fast, because that's where all the fat's at, in your kidneys and liver. But see, that's what's wrong with you, is your liver is inflamed, and it's got fat all around it, which that fat that it has around it is not good fat, because, well, no fat would be if it's, choking out your liver. But as you eat Twinkies and garbage and hydrogenated oils and all this food you're eating and pizza, well, your body can't process it. So it's creating very poor cells. They don't have the right minerals and nutrients, and it's missing maybe one of the minerals in there. There's a long chain from hydrogen all the way, or helium, all the way down to uranium. You have to have the whole chain, which makes a conduit for the electricity or life, and it burns energy. It's like a little factory. The flow of electricity is literally burning the fuel, whether it be the sugars or the oils. So if you get too much heavy metal, too much mercury or some other metal, I heard somebody the other day saying, oh, you're supposed to take borax if you got the virus, or if you're too acidic. Well, that's ridiculous. Boron is a poison. We have it in slight, very trace minerals. All the minerals we have in our body is trace minerals, except for 7 of them that we need in an abundance, starting from potassium, sulfur, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, zinc, and selenium. Those 7 are in abundance. And after that, there's some that you might include maybe up to about 10 of them that are a little higher in abundance that you might need. But those are the top 7 that foods have. So when you eat a peach or a banana or even meat or whatever, it's not full of salt. You don't need salt, only in trace minerals. Only in trace amounts, I mean. You don't need borax at all. Very small trace amount. Tin or mercury or whatever. You need very, very little. You get plenty of that just in your normal go walkabout day. If you put a little sea salt on your food, you're getting most of your minerals. And you don't want to put too much of that on there because it's mostly sodium. And you don't need but just a trace amount. The RFD or whatever is saying you need 2,000 milligrams. You don't need that much, because if that were the case, then food would have a lot of salt in it. You don't see, there's no salt. There's very little salt in a peach or a banana. There might be there's small amounts, but not very much. So we don't eat very much salt. We don't do that. So anyway, I'm getting to the point that what you need to do is fast to get your liver, all the fat around your liver off of there. It's choking out your liver so it doesn't work. Because the liver is what the blood goes through immediately. When it goes into your gut and it goes right down through your liver, and it processes fat that is turned into little smaller pieces. It breaks it down and it triggers things from your gut to your liver, and the gut will send a response to your liver, and your liver will send bile down, and this creates hormones. Insulin's a hormone, and it gives you well-being and happiness and energy. So if that's not working, because your liver's encrusted with fat and the blood can't get through because the blood is being, the arteries are getting, the free radicals are building up plaque in your liver, so that the little veins are plugged and you can't get any blood flow. Same with your kidneys. You don't get a good kidney. You're not producing, your kidneys produce sodium. It goes in your blood and keeps the pH balance correctly. So your body will work on that, because you got to have that for life. But the rest of your body, it leaves it alone, and you're dying in other areas, and your hair is getting gray, and you're dying because your body's trying to stay alive. And all you got to do is fix your gut. That changes the pH balance. That changes the acidity or the alkalinity. What people keep talking about, but it's not really necessary, because you don't have to worry about your alkalinity. You just have to worry about inflammation. If you just eat food, you're not going to be inflamed, because the food has the proper balance. So when you eat extracted things like sugar or aspartame or any chemical, cocaine without the actual coca leaf, right? The caffeine without the actual cola nut, without the actual fiber and the vital chemicals. So when you're eating these chemicals directly injected right into your bloodstream, your body can't process that. So it spikes you with some sort of, it starts killing your cells, and you leave your body. So sometimes you feel actually better, because it's like killing your brain cells, and you just sort of drift off into some illusionary peace that's not real. You're literally just dying. It's a fake high. And it doesn't have the other minerals, so that what it does is it doesn't have the other nutrients, we should say. So the one little thing they've extracted may give you a high for a few minutes, but it's depleting your body of making its own serotonin, and it making a chemical imbalance throughout your body. And it's a permanent chemical imbalance if your pituitary is not working right, and your pineal gland and your thalamus gland and all this, which is, we've talked about the radiation from the phones, energy. We can't be sitting on our phones all the time. It's not good for our bodies. It's dehydrating our cells. And we need the proper amount of minerals, which means, mostly it means don't get too much minerals. Don't eat a bunch of salt. Don't boil your coffee in an aluminum pot, right? Don't take the vaccines with all the mercury. So, but you have to then fast for a while to detox. And then after you do that for as long as you possibly can, I prefer 40 days. For somebody who's overweight by 50 pounds, you need to fast for 40 days. And if you're real thin to start with, you might not go that long. At least 3 weeks. And then after you do that, you need to start only eating for a 6-month period. You're only going to be eating yogurts, cottage cheese, something. At first, just something like milk and yogurt and raw milk if you can, but if not, you need to get yogurt and cottage cheese. And they'll build your immune system back up like a baby. And then you can start introducing oatmeal and rice and bananas and stuff. And like I said, bananas and papayas and pineapples have this ability to get rid of the candidas. Even while you're fasting, you're not really getting rid of the candidas. It's just lying dormant. And by the way, cigarette nicotine is very harmful to it because the candidas is what's killing you. And so the nicotine, what it does, it doesn't kill the candidas, but it sort of allows it to be dormant so you don't know that it's there. It doesn't turn into thrush and go up your tongue and out your ears, and you don't have itchy ears and toe fungal and all this stuff. But it sort of starts allowing your body to spread the candidas throughout your body. And then when you quit, say you smoke for 10 years, you quit, 20 years, and then you quit, boom. Now all the root system of the candidas throughout your body, in your brain, in your ears, you can hear, you can itchy ears, and your throat itches, and you cough a lot. And it's candidas. It's a fungus network. And you stop smoking, and boom, immediately, it's like it just blooms. It's like you go out in the winter and you see all the fungus on the trees, but it's not really, it's all wet and damp and it's just thick. And then the summer comes and dries out and you don't see it anymore. Well, it's in your body. All the spores and all the roots are all there. You quit the nicotine and boom, a lot of people, as soon as they quit the nicotine, they die. So does that mean you shouldn't quit nicotine? No. It means you have to understand, don't smoke at all. Ever. Smoke of any kind is actually very bad for you. Very, very bad for you. That's why when you start smoking, your nose runs. And if you do it for a long time, your nose stops running. Because now it's so plugged up, the poison is just going to start building up within you. You're not getting them out your nose. You're not blowing it out anymore. You're just building it up. And it's going into, your body stores it in the fat cells. So around your liver is all this poison. So if you get your liver working again, it can remove all of those. Your liver does that. It removes the bad cells so you don't get cancer. So to not get cancer, you got to have a good liver. To not get, it don't matter what disease, all the lupus and all these back pain and arthritis, all this stuff is autoimmune deficiency, which is what their word is, but it really just means inflammation of the joints because of all the free radicals. Some people call it acidity. Well, it's inflammation, and wild lettuce and ginger, as we talked about, it's very good. Curry and garlic is wonderful, but I don't like, it's hard for me to take raw garlic. If you cook it, it doesn't do so well. You can put it in your food and it tastes good, and it's got a lot of properties that are good for you, but it's not going to help so much with the candidas if you cook it. But if you take a clove of garlic every day, that can help a real lot. But it doesn't help if you're going to eat sugar. Anyway, so 40 days of fasting for a healthy person, and then 6 months of primarily cottage cheese, yogurt, like a baby. For 6 months, all they drink is milk. And you can add little bananas with that, fresh strawberries or something like that while you're doing that, maybe after a month or so. But by the, and for about a year, you want to just make sure that every day you eat your yogurt, you're building up your immune system, you're getting rid of the candidas. The network of bacteria and candidas that's in your body is slow. It's going to take a year. You can't do it overnight. But this 1 year is going to be very tough for you. But when you get through that year, you're going to be reborn. Anyway, I really diverted off into that once I got started on that. And I really was talking about some other things. So, why does this United States have an eagle? Why are we, that's our state, That's our insignia. It's our sign. Why do we have red, white, and blue? And why do we have stars? 13 of them originally. Now we've got more, but 13 stripes. And why do we have the Eye of Osiris on our seal, and U Pluribus Unum, and a pyramid, and there's a lot of there's the eagle holding in his hand the arrows, and in his other claw, he's holding the olive branches. Well, the arrows is war, the olive branches is peace, but it also goes back to that prophecy about Joseph. So remember, Joseph, it wasn't one of the original 12. There was no eagle in the astrology because there was a serpent. And the serpents are associated with scorpions as well. The scorpion, we trample upon serpents and scorpions. They're in the constellation or the house of Scorpio. That was Dan's house, the serpent. But Dan in the book of Revelation is not found because he's replaced by another tribe that was never one of the 12 tribes. So Ephraim is the eagle. And that we know because, remember, Joseph went down into Egypt and married, as we said, Asenath, who was of the royal priestess bloodline, the Marys. Remember, in the Greek, Maria, means Lord. It's a title. Well, it doesn't mean Lord, just like we said. An doesn't mean Lord. El doesn't mean Lord. Baal doesn't mean Lord. Those are names of gods. Mari is the god of the sea. Maritime. Maritime law, the law of the sea. And, of course, in Hebrew, Mem actually means water. Mama. And or is the light. Just like we have Oranos. Anu, or Anus, or Anun is the sky, and Or is the light, so it's Father, Heavenly Father, but it's a twist. Not just the heavens, but it's even higher than that. It's the light of heaven. And this is not just Mama, but this is Mama, a light. Mari, the highest you can be. And so John in the book of 2nd John says, unto the chosen lady. Lady is a bad translation. It's Madame or Milord. Maria. And to her children, which is all of us. So, Joseph went down into Egypt and married a Mary. He married princess of the line of On, of which is, remember, it's a Greek word. So it was really the city of Ra. Not Helios, but in Egyptian it was Or, Ra, Horus, his son, the actual son. The city of Ra, which was the great phoenix bird. And he had 6 feathers on each wing. And his wings surrounded him. And that was the 12 houses. So the sun is surrounded by the 12 houses. And it's the Ra. It's the phoenix bird. Enoch in the Bible, who gave us the mysteries. And built the pillar of Enoch, which is the Great Pyramid. And gave us the mysteries. And the great priesthood of Melchizedek. And so, the temple of Ra is where, in the Bible, is called the temple of On, or the city of On. And the princess there that Joseph married was a princess from Abraham. And he was a destined prince. And in the prophecy, he was to go to the opposite end of the earth and become fruitful and become a multitude of nations. Not, you hear all these people saying, oh, one race, they must be the Israel because they're a multitude of nations. So people say, oh, look, it must be England, right? Because England's colonized all around Australia, Canada, and all these, multitude of nations. That's not a multitude, that's a few. Maybe you could come up with 20, I don't know, 50. But that's not a multitude. That's not all. Of multitude really means all. Like when it says, I saw a great multitude in heaven of every tribe, tongue, nation, people. That's what it's talking about. The promise to the people, to the nations. That's why Abraham was the father of many nations, or a multitude of nations. What it means, infinite number. And that's why the Apostle Paul calls him the father of all, the father of faith. And so the Abraham is the Brahmins, the Buddhists who came from Israel, of the Sake tribe, which is the Scythians, which is the historians tell us that was the lost tribes of Israel. And so they went to Japan, and the religion of Shinto, just as Buddhism is from Israel, and Busi, or Buddha, Ezekiel was the son of Buse, which in Hebrew, Z and D are interchangeable. So Budi, son of Buddha. So Ezekiel went to the river Shavar, right where Buddha was, and we're told that Budi was of the tribe of the Sake, of the lost tribes of Israel. And you can go to Japan and see there's a Mount Moriah there. Right? We remember where we get Moriah. Moriah is Mr in Hebrew. Mur. Same with Egyptian. Mr. Didn't have vowels. So Mur is how you call a pyramid. And there's a great mountain in Africa called Meru. And they patterned their great pyramids. The great pyramid was Mur. Or, as the Bible says, Mount Moriah, where Abraham went and where David and Solomon built the temple. But the priestess of the temple was a Mary, the Lord. And she would anoint her husband as Mary Magdala, or Triple Tower Temple, which was down in Alexandria, because they moved it from, when the Greeks destroyed Heliopolis, they moved the temple up to Alexandria. So that was the great temple in the time of Christ, where Mary Magdalene was the great high priest Pharaoh, as we've said, Cleopatra, who was the reincarnation of Isis, and her son Isu, who was the son of Isis, was born. The son of Caesar, Eleazar, or Lazarus, was Isu, little Caesar, Caesarion, son of Caesar, son of Isis. The Mary, who ruled from the great temple, Magdala, or the tower. And Jesus was the lineal descendant of the kings of On, or Ra, or the pharaohs from Abraham, the son of David, Daud, divinity, divine, Dawu, Dava, Davi, Diva, and even the word devil, because that just means a spirit. All those words come from that word, the divine, or it's also where we get the word deity, and day, Dau, day, which means the light, the day, the sun, the king. And so the son of David is like Horus, the son of Osiris. Or, So Joseph has a son, two children, And Joseph's tribe gets a double portion, and he gets his son Ephraim takes over Dan's tribe, and the eagle destroys the serpent. And so the two bloodlines have been in the earth. One from Dan's line that leaped from Bashan, who tried mixing his little lion with the lion of Judah, the Tuatha-De-Danans, and you find his mark all around along the way. But now I'm over an hour, and I want to, in the last 2 minutes, tell you something very important. That's where I started off with all of this. Names are very important. So my mother was named Joyce, and her mom and dad probably didn't know why, but maybe that was tradition in their family. So you go back, you find out where this Joyce came from. Joyce is another word for joy in their language. It's come down to us as Joyce. Joyful. Well, it goes back to a name, a bloodline, a royal bloodline. The Joyces were in the Don, or the state in Ireland, of Maconnacht. Maconnacht is also there where Ulster and, the tribe of Tuatha-De-Danans, and they broke it all up. And so the royal bloodline there was the Maconnachts, which, in England became spelled a little differently. When we came to America, they called it, one spelling is McConaughey. Well, my mother's maiden name is McConaughey. Her father's bloodline goes back to the Maconnachts. In that Don, from the Danu, son of Zerah, son of Judah, of the royal blood, because they have the red hand, which is a symbol of the red hand. When he put his hand out, see, there were two twins in the womb of Judah's wife, Tamar. One was Zerah, one was Pharez. So there were two lines of the royal blood. One went to Ireland in Ulster and became the ruling line that was transferred there, thrown to Scotland and into the British, which the British means covenant man. And remember, the 12 tribes are all the tribes, but this is just the royal blood, because Judah would know who he is, and the scepter would not depart from Judah until he who comes has a legal right, which is the child from Joseph, who gets the birthright. And so in Christ, we all get the birthright, because we're all in Christ. And that's that spiritual seed, which is all of us, a cake not turned. Joseph is a cake not turned. He's in all the earth, and I've planted him like seed. In every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, he shall be a great multitude. America then is that branch that became fruitful by a well, and it went over the wall to the opposite. He pushed the peoples to the ends of the earth, and his ensign and standard is the eagle, and he shall defeat the royal bloodline from Dan that is ruling from Germany in the third Reich, soon to be a fourth, that will, as Nostradamus say, defeat France and try to defeat, coming in up through France, try to defeat and take over Germany. And they'll join forces with Islam. There'll be a great comet. England shall be flooded, the Isles, with water, because a comet or a mountain, 6 or 7 stadia will fall into the sea, and there will be great floods and famines and pestilence and earthquakes. And this all begins when Ma-Bus dies and the great comet falls. The Bible talks about the comet called wormwood, the bitter, makes the waters bitter and floods the world, and the bottomless pit is open and the great Antichrist comes out, Ma-Bus. Well, the great eagle comes with locusts from the water, or the submarines, and from sail. And he has a great war with the Antichrist. The eagle will defeat the serpent shortly, my friends. From his ships and his submarines, they shall go and defeat and bring back the exile of the British people and defeat the great Antichrist. And then the remnant, the remaining ones of his people, the 144,000, shall remain and establish the kingdom of God on earth. That is what the Bible tells us. That is what Nostradamus says. That is what Sir Isaac Newton says in 2060. Because there's going to be a 40-year period. It's going to be very, very dark with pestilence. And Jesus said if he didn't bring those days and cut them short, no flesh would be saved. People will eat their own babies in the streets. And there will be earthquakes, and there will be famines, and there will be pestilences, which is plagues, disease, in one place after another. But he says, when you see these things, don't be sad. Raise yourselves up. And lift up your heads, for your deliverance is drawing nigh. This is happy days. Oh, happy days, because it says 10,000 shall fall at your right hand, and thousands at your left, but it shall not come nigh unto thee. Let me repeat. 10,000 at your right hand shall fall, 1,000 at your left hand, but it shall not come nigh unto thee. For ye shall mount up with the wings of a great eagle. And you will see the grand city of the great king in the most remotest parts of the north, on the opposite ends of the earth. The blessings that were given to Joseph, whose blessing extended beyond all of his brothers and included all of his brothers. And everyone's blessing shall be in Joseph, because Joseph's ear of wheat or corn, the ear of grain, shall rule over the other 11. And all that means is the spiritual child within you is going to have dominance over the flesh. The 12 different natures that are all within us. So it's almost over, friends. We're just about there. And so Joyce was a bloodline, the Joyces, and they teamed up with the McConaughey's. And they made a pact that, because you see, always the royal bloodline had to have pure blood. They couldn't marry just anyone. They had to protect the Holy Grail, the holy bloodline. The line of the Fisher Kings, the Merovingian line. Through Lazarus and his daughters and his son-in-law, Jesus. And so the Holy Grail, the holy bloodline, and the Fisher Kings went through Marseille, up through Lyons and to Paris, and over to Scotland and England and all around the world in various different ways. And created all the bloodlines of the earth, the Caesars, the Khazars, the Tsars of Russia, the Nebuchadnezzars of Babylon, and all the Tsars or the rulers of the world. Unbeknownst to the royal, supposedly royal, holy Roman Catholic Church, the beast, who tried to defeat them and burn down their libraries and their cathedrals and their cities and their civilization and their constitutions of love and peace and justice and liberty for all, and persecute and infiltrate and create the Illuminati, who defeated and murdered them in Inquisition and tyranny, and now their last little hoorah is to try and subjugate us all in this little phone, and with 5G, cull us, shrink our thalamus gland so we can't find God, dumb us down, make us sick, and enslave us before it's too late. But we got their number. We know what's going on. So, McConaughey, that's why they had a tradition of naming their children Joyces. And then, when I was a young man, I met I was working in Idaho, in Sandpoint, Idaho, in a resort there called Connie's. It was a Best Western 5-star dining lodge, and they had a lounge in the back and with drinks, and they had a catering service, and it was a very, very amazing place to eat, 5-star restaurant. And I worked there as a cook, and there was a man that was working there with me, and I didn't know him. I didn't know who he was, and as we worked together for a while, we got to be friends, and we'd start going out and having coffee and talking, and his last name was Joyce. Well, I didn't understand at the time, but since then the Lord has explained to me that this man was also my best friend 500 years ago. And his last name, Joyce, he was a descendant of the Joyces. And my mother was, of course, a descendant of the McConaughey's, and that's why her name was also Joyce, because it stays in the family. And so we reincarnate with our family and our friends. We're always, the people that are around you have been around you for thousands and millions of years. And so we did a little investigating. We found out that he was born almost right where I was, there in Fresno, right near me, not too far from there, and spent about the same number of years in that area, and then ended up going to Idaho in the same little town, Sandpoint, in Bonners Ferry, just a few miles from the Canadian border. We ended up working at the same little restaurant, and became friends, best friends, as we had done for generations. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm going to go ahead and go, guys. Hope you guys have a great day. See you again tomorrow.